Hey guys, it's Jitten. My current event topic is one that definitely did not make the front pages, at least not here in the United States. I'm talking about the controversy in the 2015 World Indigenous Games held in Palmas, Brazil. It was a 9-day event with things like dancing and simple sports like archery, canoeing, log carrying, a lot of cultural exchange going on there, and it probably doesn't sound very familiar. And that's because this year was the first time that they ever had it. The World Indigenous Games are supposed to be a response to the Olympic Games, but for indigenous people. And it's not just some local spin off. Some 2,000 representatives had ended up coming, and they were from countries around the world like Russia, Finland, and New Zealand. And it actually just wrapped up this past Saturday. And I thought it was really cool because I just stumbled onto these awesome pictures from Mashable, and the article had words like stunning and photograph in the title. So next thing I know, I'm going down looking through all these pictures to get to the last one, and I see protesters. Luckily for me, the little bit of Spanish that I know makes me qualified to understand the Portuguese signs that they were carrying around. They were about stopping genocide and some restrictive laws. So I did some digging, aka I googled. And that's where I hit the landmine. I found that it wasn't all pretty colors and fancy clothing. It turns out that around the same time, a congressional committee had just passed a proposal that restricted and limited the tribal lands of native Brazilians. So here you are, inviting indigenous people from all around the world, but at the same time, you're going to pass a bill that further marginalizes the ones who are already there. That's a pretty big blunder. And it doesn't just end there. The protesters then committed blunder number two by taking it upon themselves to interrupt the games by invading the arena. They actually drew criticism because of this for mixing political agenda into a sporting event, which is a big no when it comes to the Olympics, because those games are supposed to be a mirror to the Olympics, and Olympic games ignore political boundaries, at least they're supposed to. And on top of that, apparently the organizers of the games didn't account for the athletes being unprepared because it was their first time participating in an event like this, since it was the first time the event was being held at all. So there were a lot of safety issues that were came up, and that was blunder number three. And in the women's swimming event, a lot of the swimmers had to quit, holding on for their lives to the first aid boat, and the winner was actually taken to the hospital. The same thing happened in the 100-meter dash, where the winner collapsed at the finish line and she was taken on a stretcher. So, what exactly happened here? It looked like a firestorm of terrible events and reactions, but it's also a combination of really poor planning and even worse execution. My assumption has to be that the level of thought and planning that went into the Indigenous Games wasn't even close to what goes into the Olympics. And unfortunately, that's just speculation because there were not many statements released about how the government wanted to address the issue. And all I can say for now is that it's a lesson to be learned. Maybe it's a good time to ask question numero uno. What should the Brazilian government's next step be? They clearly need to do something because while they were not the only ones wrong, they did make their mistake first, and well, noticeably. And they have the most to lose in terms of their image because they're also hosting the Olympics next year in Rio. So it clearly starts with them. Motioning for a bill like that when you have an event that represents goodwill toward everyone else, that's just wrong. And on top of that, you have an even larger global event coming up, and they need to fix it by then. It's a huge turnoff for so many tribes within the hosting country. So what message does that send to the rest of the world when a lot of the natives just feel like the games are a joke and that they were to be pacified? It's a pretty jerk-like thing to do. But at the same time, they were pretty lucky, I guess, because another one of my assumptions is that the good majority of people had no idea that there even was such a thing as the Indigenous Games. And when a lot of people don't know that something like this exists, there's not going to be a lot of coverage about it. So, on the one hand, it's kind of like no harm, no foul. And it's really unfortunate because the organizers and the people who were a part of it, they're definitely affected. And they only announced that the next venue was supposed to be Canada, but they never gave a date or anything the way that they normally do. So I have to ask, what needs to change from the organization in order to make sure that there can be a part two to the Indigenous Olympics? Because from the pictures that I saw, it looked really cool, and I think it would be a great thing to watch, and I feel like only a few people even knew about the games. Last thing I want to talk about is just I just want to know what you guys think the repercussions could be about this and how it applies to us in our society over here. And I ask this because it's only just now starting to become a topic of conversation in a way with certain states like Washington and how they replace Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day. So there is a little bit of food for thought, and this topic can be picked up more and more as time goes on, but I guess we'll just have to find out. That's all I have for you guys today, and I just want to thank you for tuning in and listening, and I'll see you guys next time.